In this video, we're going to add a task from Client Hub. So in the search bar on the top right, you can look for your client. You can either type in their name or I've recently visited Romeo's client record. I'll just click on his name. On the icon strip on the left, you can see we're on the client menu. And if I open it up, we're on Key Details Client Hub. Now, Xplan is customizable. Your Xplan might look slightly different. Once you get to Client Hub, it'll do similar things. So I'll just click on the icon strip again to collapse that menu. On Client Hub, the information that you see here on the top is again customizable per Xplan site to a certain extent. Let's talk about adding a task. So if I scroll down a little bit, you can see that I can quickly add in a note, appointment, task, or email. I'm going to click on the Task tab, and then you'll add in a subject, and then add in a due date, maybe let's say in 2 weeks' time, and which user you'd like to assign it to. I'll just say myself this time, but when you type, it'll bring up the other users in your Xplan group, which would be your colleagues. And then of course, don't forget to update the type and subtype. I'm just going to leave it as the default this time, but please don't just randomly leave it as the default. Your practice manager or your licensee have specific types and subtypes that they want you to use. You can put in your note and then come down and add quick tasks. Now, just so you know, it does tell you that tasks created using quick add will be linked to the primary client, which in this case is Romeo. For now, let's just click on add quick task. Now, if I want to add a task with Julia, I need to use the full task option. So I will click on full task. I can use a template. And again, if you wanted to use a task template, assuming your practice manager or licensee has set it up for you, even if it was for Romeo, you would come here anyway. Give it a name. And what I would do is leave the entity as client. I know it might be a bit confusing, but clients means clients and partner. Users means users in your user group. So that would be staff in your company. So just leave it as client and X to get rid of Romeo. And now we'll type in Julia. Oops. She appears. So make sure you select it. It's assigned to myself because I'm making the task. But of course, you can press X and then type in your colleague's name and it will show for you to select. And the due date, not today. Let's just make it Tuesday. 2 days. That's more than enough. And you can put in your little description. Now let's see, what does show more do? Ah, okay, it opens up in this big view here. It lets you select the type and subtype, which I kind of wish wasn't behind show more. I feel like it's super important. Usually there's a phone call. Here it is, communication. Here, phone call, and then the client, and so on, and then create. I just want to open up full task again. What's notifications? It takes us to the same window that more details did, except instead of being on the details tab, it was in the notifications tab. Might speak more about my views on notifications in the next video. What else do we have? The priority. What else is there? There is task subject. If you click on the ellipsis, you can go back to classic view, which looks like this, which I will be going through in another video. All right, so let's cancel out of that. Okay, so coming back to the task tab, I really wish that when we clicked on full task, when we need to add in a task for a partner, that the type and subtype was there. I understand that if you pick a template, the type and subtype will populate, but I don't feel that's always the case. Now let's have a look at where to view it in Client Hub specifically. On the right, there is an activity panel and it shows you all activities, notes, appointments, tasks, or emails. I will click on tasks and you can see here that there's an overdue task from 3 months ago. That's why it's at the top. There's more stuff from 3 months ago. That's why it's at the top, because it was, you know, due first, right? It was due 3 months ago. My video recording just cut out on me and I had recorded a bunch of stuff, but we'll restart at this point. Okay, so let's see what other things that we can do. We can click on the ellipsis button. We can pin this task. So if I click on pin, it pops it right at the top. So it's kind of in your face. And then you can always click on the ellipsis button and unpin it as well. I can view or edit this task by just clicking on the blue subject line or clicking on edit. And I can also view it in classic view, which as I said, I'll go through in a different video. So let's say I click on edit, or I just click on the blue subject line. I can change the status, the priority, who it's assigned to, the due date, that's the description. All of this is familiar, right? But what's different that you might want to use is comments. So you can see I added one in just now when I didn't record. So I can do comment 2 and click on add. From recollection, there isn't a way to delete comments once they're made, but I'll just double check that in a different view. But anyway, there's no way to delete a comment from this view. The next tab is checklists, and all you have to do is click add item and just change the due date and add. Oh, it's got a star. Checklist item will be set to optional. Let's see what that does. Let's make this one not optional, right? And then let's make another one as optional. Oh no, sorry. This means it's optional. This means it's mandatory. Okay. Let's see what it does. And there's a star, so you know it's mandatory. You can actually delete or edit checklist items, unlike comments. And then with attachments, again, I can't seem to delete one once it's done, but I can rename it. And I really do like renaming attachments because you can search by attachment names. But I can click and drag and drop, and it uploads. Okay, as per usual, don't forget to scroll down and click on save. Now you might be thinking, why is it so annoying that you have to scroll down and save? To be fair, I do have my screen resolution quite large because of my eyesight. So I don't know if you're less short-sighted than me and you have different laptop settings, you won't have to scroll. But you know, just in case, remember to actually click on save. When you click on save, you're exited out. So now let me show you what these things do, okay? So if you click on attachments, you can see the attachments. They don't actually open up for you to read. What they do is when you click on it, it downloads a copy to your laptop. This one here, it shows that there are comments. So yeah, 2 comments, so you can read it. So that's really handy. And then here you can see that there are 4 checklist items. And I really like it because all I have to do is tick and then it's done. Oh, actually, okay, the number means 3 are done and there's 1 left to do. That's what it means. All right, so I'm gonna leave this mandatory, and I know it's mandatory because of the asterisk one, and see what happens later. And then last of all here in unactioned, you can change the status. So I wonder if I click on complete when there is a mandatory checklist, what happens? It still completes even though it's mandatory. I'm not really sure what the consequences of mandatory is or is not then. Ooh, a 3rd comment has been added in. It went, oh, it was completed today. So that's looking through the activity panel. When I figure out what's the point of making it mandatory or not, I'll put it in the comments of this YouTube video. Okay, so summing up, my thoughts on Client Hub, I think it's a really useful first view when you enter into a client record, which is why it's probably the default landing page when you go into a client record. I understand that, you know, there is a dedicated task area where it's easier to search and look at more detail. There's a dedicated notes area, etc. But it's just a really nice snapshot when you enter into the client record. And I like this active workflow because when I come in, I can see, oh, there's one more task to do that isn't overdue, and I can click down and click into it. And eek, there's three overdue. And I think that's really handy. And I really, really like the ability to go to a task, click on the checklist, and tick it off. It's having a checklist to remind ourselves of exactly what to do is really useful. I use Jira in my day job, and I'm always using the checklist just to make sure I'm not missing anything. All right, so that is adding in a task from Client Hub. I hope you have a lovely week and remember to be kind to yourself throughout the week.